Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. And Mr. Chair, I understand that you and Senator Cornyn agree that we will be hearing from the administration at a future hearing and getting the data. I think that that's very, very important if we want to solve a complex problem. The subject that we're discussing today is one part of it's really not that difficult policy proposition, but for the politics. But when I hear people on either end of the political spectrum here blame one administration or another, the only thing that I believe is absolutely true is for about the last 40 years, there have been bipartisan failures under Republican administrations. We can point back to 1986 with Reagan's decision to provide amnesty. That created some of the pressures on the border. And each of the administrations I've observed, they've all failed. We haven't solved the problem. When you get into this, the reason why it's so important for us to get data is we've got to understand and come up with a common understanding of the problem. If we have child labor, if we have any person working because they're essentially forced to, the person who made the decision to hire them should be subject to criminal penalties and fines. Just simply that's simple. Let's talk about policies that do that. But then let's also talk about the reality that 80% of the people who come to the United States and claim asylum are ultimately adjudicated as not having a credible fear claim. So how many of these children were carried across the border, were subjected to the kinds of atrocities that I have firsthand accounts of, being down at the border several times, because someone made a decision to come to this country, put their children at risk, and not have a valid, credible fear claim? What about the families that leave one country, transit to a safe third country, and instead of choosing to apply for asylum there, then risk their child's life and limb by crossing the Rio Grande River? Every single person crossing the border now, if they want a good chance of surviving, have to pay a toll to the transnational criminal organizations. It was estimated that a year and a half ago, transnational criminal organizations were making $800 million a year in human trafficking. I fully believe that many of these children who find themselves having to work is in part having to pay the toll that they had to pay to get across the border. Depending upon the country, that can range anywhere from about $5,000 to $50,000. So the reason that we wanted a hearing is to baseline each and every one of the challenges that we're confronted with and address them separately. I personally believe that a parent who chooses to subject their children to all of the risks that come from transiting the southern border should be held accountable. If, in fact, they had an opportunity to go to a safe third country, get them out of what I will stipulate was a dangerous situation in their country of origin, but why on earth would you not try and take the safest path to get here legally? Why on earth wouldn't you stop at a safe third country and say, I have a difficult, dangerous situation in my country, I have documentation to prove it, and I'm applying for asylum? What's wrong with that? So sooner or later, we have to talk about the reality that parents are making bad decisions in the thousands. 80%, folks, 80% of the people who apply for asylum are adjudicated by Democrat, Independent, and Republican judges as not having a valid, credible fear claim. That's a big number. So we have to start looking at this and teasing through it and then getting to immigration policies at work. Most people know that I've been on every bipartisan effort to try and get immigration reform, border security done since I've been in Congress the last 9 years. But then we talk past ourselves. We say, well, if we just have guest worker programs. What we don't talk about is how labor unions want to artificially increase the rates to the point to where you just won't have those jobs in the United States. And they could be living wage jobs. But that dirty little secret from the left never gets brought up, but it's real, and we can point to proposals where that's a problem. But I'll tell you who's watching this hearing probably more than anybody else. It's the cartels. When you grow an enterprise to $800 million a year, you can get pretty sophisticated. And we're letting the cartels play us like a piano by talking past each other and not coming up with sustainable, smart solutions to immigration reform, humanitarian accommodations for the families who are truly at risk and the children, and all of these other things that we could be working on. But my guess is in this hearing, we'll talk past each other quite a bit. And we're at risk of going another 4 or 5 years if we don't get this right in this Congress without any solution at all. And the kids suffer, Border Patrol agents will die, 100,000 people will die of fentanyl overdoses, and we'll be so close, but people do not have the political courage to step up and solve this problem. That's on us. It's not on you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Tillis. Senator Padilla.